Uh, and then in 1997, the journal Virology had two articles, one written by a French-German group, and the other one was written by an American group. And it was the first time in the scientific literature that pictures were published of this so-called virus in large quantities, that is, purified HIV. And it was, they made a major mistake, because if you looked at the bar graphs at the bottom of the picture, you could see that the American virus was 60% bigger than the European virus. Well, that's nonsense.
Because the virus, it can't be different size.
That's right. And the authors of those two papers they said that they wanted to point out that research labs doing AIDS research had better be careful when they bought pure HIV from these companies, because there is no such thing as pure HIV. It's always contaminated with cellular material. And they admit that. They wanted these researchers to know that they better be careful when they develop these HIV tests, because there's a lot of cellular material in there that they can't get out. So how can you tell which proteins belong to this, what they call a virus, and how can you tell which proteins belong to this cellular material, which is an indication that the HIV tests are going to cause a lot of false positive tests. And then I think it was in 1998, I read this material from this group from Perth, Western Australia, and they had a French investigative journalist interview Dr. Luc Montagnier, who supposedly was the discoverer of the HIV virus. And he admitted in an on-camera interview that he couldn't find any virus in the material he was studying under his electron microscope. He couldn't find it. He said it didn't have the material that could have been viruses. They were virus-like particles. It didn't have the morphology or shape typical of a retrovirus.
So it's a virus, but it's a retrovirus.
Yeah. And he admitted that he couldn't purify the virus.
But I thought you said he's the one that discovered it.
Well, that's a long story which involves politics and French pride. He published the first paper in the journal Science in 1983, in which he claimed to have discovered this possible AIDS-causing virus. He said he isolated it. He wasn't even the lead author of that paper. And when Robert Gallo, who was trying to discover the virus that caused AIDS, was asked about this, he said no, that Montagnier didn't prove that he had isolated the virus. And then Gallo asked Montagnier for some samples of his virus so he could do his own research. Well, he got them, and then it was discovered that they claimed that Gallo stole Montagnier's virus. So this created the impression that there was really a virus out there, and you could prove it with an electron microscope. But then here in 1997 or 1998, Montagnier admitted that he hadn't isolated the virus. He couldn't do it. But that was all
It's too late. And Gallo then jumped on the bandwagon.
And then there was a lawsuit, a threatened lawsuit between the government of France and the government of the United States, and the premier of France met with President Reagan, and they worked this out. So they gave both men credit for discovering the virus.
Jeez, but they never did discover it.
No, they didn't discover it. If you read in the paper that this was worked out as to who discovered it, you assume it was discovered. Well, they never prove it. They were never able to prove that with electron microscope pictures. All they could show is something that could have been a virus, a retrovirus. But both groups, the American group and the German-French group, admitted that they couldn't separate their virus from cellular material.
But if this was a normal type virus discovery,
Yeah.
wouldn't you expect that if they really had discovered a virus, that the electron microscope would be able to help you locate it?
Oh, absolutely. It shows it. It shows you see nothing but virus particles. They're all the same.
Right, in any other virus discovery.
Yeah, yeah. And
But in this discovery of a virus, amazingly, they've discovered it without locating it under electron microscope.
yeah, they took shortcuts. They discovered it in their mind.
But the public and the media,
Oh, they fell for it, sure. One of the problems with HIV AIDS research, it involves too many scientific specialties. To understand the whole thing, you have to be an electron microscope expert, you have to be a molecular biologist, you have to be a hematologist, you have to be an immunologist, and so on and so forth. You have to be a virus expert, you have to be an expert in bacteriology.
but you can read these medical documents, right? I mean, aren't you prepared with your field of training?
Well, I'm pretty good at picking things apart, and you can, after a while, you can see, well, they sort of skipped over this, or they get into detail that only the authors would understand.
But a lot of people are being deceived.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't feel you are being deceived.
No.